Creating a deck of cards with CSS may sound like something incredibly easy to do, but making it look exactly like a normal deck of cards while also having incredibly clean CSS code is very difficult. In this video, I'm going to attempt to do just that, create an exact replica of a deck of cards with clean CSS code, and this is my very first attempt at this problem. You're going to see me go through it step by step live, so you can really see what I do to think about this problem and also how I debug issues I run into. Welcome back to Web Dev Simplified. My name's Kyle, and my job is to simplify the web for you so you can start building your dream project sooner. And today I'm going to attempt to create a style of cards very similar to what you see on the right-hand side of my screen. And this is just at deck.of.cards/old. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description for you. But essentially, I just want to replicate a normal deck of cards. Now, to help me out with this, I just have some images downloaded. These are just SVG images for things like the club icon, the heart icon, and I have a few SVGs that I'm using for Jack, King, and Queen. I ended up deciding not to use this like normal Jack, Queen, King style that you see on the right-hand side here, just because that isn't PNG and PNGs don't scale as you resize your card, and I want these cards to be resizable to any screen size at all. So with that said, I'm going to be trying to use mostly HTML and CSS for this project, but I'm thinking I'll probably use JavaScript to try to clean up a lot of like the repetitive nature of like pasting 7 hearts or 8 hearts down. So that'll hopefully make it so it's a little bit cleaner code overall. But to get started, let's just get us an HTML page. We'll do index HTML and let's get a style sheet. There we go. And in our HTML, let's get some boilerplate. And what I want to do in here is just kind of lay out how I think the structure of my card is going to go. So I think I'm going to have just like a card, and the card I'm going to give it a data attribute for suit. So we're going to say like, let's say this one is going to be heart, and we're going to give it a value. So we'll say data value, and let's say the value for this is going to be, let's just say 3, because 3 is pretty straightforward. Actually, we'll just do 2. 2 is even easier. So now inside this card, I would essentially have like 2 hearts inside the card, and those are going to be like pips is what we're going to call them maybe. So like on a dice you have pips, that's kind of what I'm thinking of here. So these pips would be like 2 hearts, so each one of these is going to be like a pip is what we'll call it, I think. So this would be the heart in here and the heart in here. And then we also need to have the number in the top left and bottom right corner. So we're going to have, let me see, corner number, and we'll call this one like top maybe. Yeah, that should work. And we're going to have a corner number, and this one's going to be bottom. This one should say top like that. So this will say 2 and 2. Yes, I believe that'll work. And then we also need to have the heart symbol in here as well. So we have the corner number, we're going to have the heart as well inside of there. We'll come to that when we get to that though. I think this is enough to get started with. We can just open this with live server so we can see what we're working with. I'll pull that over. There we go. So we just have the number 2 on here twice. Okay, pretty straightforward. So let's actually style out like the basics for our, let's see here. I'm going to do my everything selector just to get rid of all that box sizing. So, or to change my box sizing. Box sizing, border box, there we go. And then I want to select that card class. Now I did do some research right before this video to see what the dimensions of a card are, and the dimensions of a card, they're 1.4 times taller than they are wide. So we at least know that the height should be 1.4 times the width. So let's come in here with like a CSS variable we're going to call width, and let's say for now we want it to be 10 rem, or we'll do 10 em, because we want everything to scale off the size of our font. Because as our font increases, we want the rest of our card to increase as well, so that it makes sense. Okay, 10 em. Yeah, that should work. And then what we want to do is we want our height to just be a calculation, which is our width times 1.4. I believe that is the ratio that we're looking for. So now I can say width is width, height, height. There we go. And if we just give this like a background color of white and a border of 1 pixel solid black for now, and I'm going to change our body. And we're just going to give it a background color, and we're going to give it like a kind of gray color. If we look over here, none of these are being applied, of course. Make sure I apply my CSS styles. There we go. So now we have our card showing up. It's quite large, so that's probably a little bit too big. We don't want it to be 10 EM. Let's try like 5 EM. For now, I think that's fine. It might be a little bit too small because these numbers are kind of large, but for now, I think this is a good starting point. Okay, let's add a border radius in there. So we'll say border radius is like 0.1 EM. No, it needs to be bigger than that, 0.5 EM. Nope, 0.25 EM. There we go, it looks pretty good. So there we go, we have essentially our card styled. The next thing that I want to do is I want to work on the pip section because I think that is the most interesting section to work on. So inside of our card, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some like padding, and we'll just say like 1 EM for now. And maybe not quite that big, 0.5 EM. And that's just going to be like the space where we can lay our pips out. Because if we look at like the 10 here, for example, you can see there's some padding all the way around this card where there's no heart symbols at all, and all the heart symbols show up in the middle section. That's kind of what this padding right here is emulating. So now I want to style out our pips. And to do that, I think I'm going to be using CSS Grid. Now, the reason for that is we look at these cards, all of the pips on the cards or all the hearts, they land inside of a grid. So the 10 is the easiest one to look at. Like if we look at the 10 and like the 6, for example, let me just move this ace out of the way. You can see that if we look along the top here, we have 3 different columns. We have this column, we have the next column, and then we have the column after that. Pretty straightforward. But when it comes to rows, it's a little bit harder to see our rows. We have this row right here with our hearts, that's the first row. Then this middle heart right here is in our second row. Then our third row. Then if we look over at our 6, we see that we have a 4th row, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So we have 7 rows and we have 3 different columns. But the important thing is that the rows, essentially each icon takes up 2 rows of height. So every icon is 2 rows tall and 1 column wide. So we know that our grid is going to have that 3x7 kind of look to it, but we know that all of our icons are taking up double the height of a normal row. And that's why they have this like overlap. You can see the 10 right here, this middle heart kind of overlaps these other ones, you know, on that row type of look. So what we want to do is we're going to change this to display of grid. And we're going to have some grid template columns, and we want to have 3 of these. So we'll just do repeat 3. And for the sizing of these columns, I believe we can just auto size them. So we can just say that we want them to be like 1 FR, so they each are the same amount of size. And then for our rows, we can do the same exact thing, but we want them to be 7 rows, and they're all going to be that same 1 FR tall. I believe that's all we need to do for that, and now we can start styling out each one of our individual pips. So we could say pip here is just going to be, the color is going to be dependent on the suit. So if the data suit, let me get my selector for that, data suit is equal to heart, or if the data suit is a diamond, then we want the color to be red. Otherwise, if the suit is either a spade or a club, then we're going to change the color to black. That should be good. And if we just give this essentially like a width of 10 pixels, height 10 pixels, we should hopefully be able to see it. Yeah, let me do that on both of these real quick, just for now. And also I'm going to change this to background color, just so we can see that this is working. Yeah, you can see we have 2 red squares essentially showing up, which is exactly what we want. Sorry, I had to go get my dog. She was barking outside, but I'm back. We have the 2 red squares showing up. Obviously, we don't want these to be squares. We want them to be heart symbols. So I believe what we can do, I'm just going to copy this code real quick. I'm going to paste it down. And what I want to do is if we have a heart, then I want to change the background image. I'm going to say background image is going to be a URL which points to images/heart.svg. There we go. Now if I save, you can see we get these hearts. That's perfect. The color is not red. I wonder if inside my heart SVG, the fill is set to current color. That should be going through. Maybe I need, oh, it's because I'm doing background image here instead of actually using the SVG. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, what I can do is I can just hard code this red, because I mean, honestly, every heart is going to be red. Every diamond is going to be red. Every club is going to be black, and every single spade is also going to be black. For now, that will solve the problem. When we get to Jack, King, Queen, that's going to be a little bit trickier, which will be fine. That's probably when we'll start getting into the JavaScript stuff. So I don't want to set a width or height to anything. I want them to just be 100%, and I want to do background repeat none, so like no repeat. And background position is going to be center. And background, is it cover? No, it's background. Let me find it here. Clip. No, background size. Yeah, there we go, cover. Okay, that way the hearts are just like full size. There we go. For now, I'll just put the color red in here, but we might not even need that. Okay, so there's my two pips. They're both taking up one of the three columns, I believe. Let's add in a third pip just to see what it looks like, because I should take up the third column. Oh, and these twos obviously shouldn't be here. We're just going to comment those out for now. So that's what it's taking up space-wise for the three columns. Okay. It's looking like I might not have enough padding, I don't think. So maybe I'm going to change my padding here to 0.75 EM on the card. There we go. Give them a little bit less space. And then I want to have every single pip have a column. So it's grid col. Sorry, I had to jump away again. There's lots of foxes in my neighborhood and my dog loves barking at them. So grid column span 2. So that way they span 2 columns worth of height. Okay. We want the width to be 100%, and we want the height to be auto. I believe that's what we want. Oh, I wonder if we can just do aspect ratio 1:1. Not quite what I was looking for. Oh, this should be grid row span 2. There we go. And then I could keep the aspect ratio on there, or I could probably say height of auto, and that might do it as well. No, it doesn't. All right, we'll keep the aspect ratio. So there we go. Now we have 3 hearts spanning across. That's good. And if we had a bunch of these pips in here, if I just add a ton of them, you can see we have them spanning here just like that. I think that's kind of what we want. So we got 3 here, 3, 3, 2. Wait a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I did exactly 12. That was pretty lucky. If I remove 1, yeah. Okay, I think this is exactly what we want. And if we need to move a pip, for example, these middle ones will need to be moved down. What we can do is I'm just going to come into one of these pips and say like down for now, temporary. What we can do, I believe, is we can say pip down, and we'll just say like grid column start is going to be 3. There we go. So now you can see these ones are kind of offset. They've been moved down, which is exactly what I want. So we can specify like the grid column start and the grid column row, and that'll tell us exactly where we want it to be. So for example, for the 2, we want the heart to be at the very top in the center and at the very bottom in the center. So we want it to be in column number 2, and we want the row to be number 0 or 1. I forget which they start at, and then whatever the last one is. Also, this should say row start instead of column start, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Either way, we got that half kind of look going, which is what we want. So we're going to get rid of that down class because that's not obviously real. There we go. We're going to go back to 2 pips, just like this. And what I want to do is... I wonder what the best way to select the first pip and the second pip is, because we have these like corner sections in here as well. I wonder if I could actually just do this corner section using a before and after element, maybe. I don't really like the idea of doing that though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these corners at the very bottom, like this. I'm going to keep them commented out for now. And then we can select the first child and second child as the pip. So we could say, for example, data value equals 2. And then we want to select the pip, which is the first child. And now we can tell it that the grid row start is going to be 2. No, we want it to be 0 or 1. I think it starts in 1. And then we can say that the column start is going to be 2. And let's get the second child here. And I believe I want the row to start in 7. We should actually probably have 8 rows here, because the final 10, like the heart down at the very bottom, is going to take row 7 and 8, I believe. Okay, and we want the column start to also be 2. So let me save that. It did nothing. Oh, this should be nth child 2. There we go. That looks a little bit better. We need this to start in 8. Because we're starting in row, is there a row 0? No, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do 1 here. I'm going to go back over here. So, which is one that has 4 rows? We'll do 9. So we're just going to put 4 pips in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to see what it looks like when we have 4. Because I want to just kind of get that total filled out vertical column. So we'll say 3 and 4. This is purely just for testing purposes. So this will start in 3. This would start in 5. And this would start in 7. Does this look correct? That looks good. It looks like there's maybe more space on the bottom than there's on the top, but I could just be like completely seeing things. So I think this is fine. We can get rid of these 2. We don't need them anymore. Get rid of the pips there. And this should say 7. So that's how we style out the 2. And we can get rid of this down right here. These are styled together. There we go. And I want all pips to have these background classes applied to them. There we go. So we kind of minimize that down. This is essentially what a 2 looks like for the pip section. And the same thing would be the 3s, but then we would have another one, you know, in position 4, I believe. Ah, this just seems a little off on the positions. It's like 1, 3, 2, 3, 4. So that would be in position 4. 5, 6, 7. I think it would be position 8 for this one. Yeah, that seems a little better. And if we did a 3rd child, we would have this one be position 4. And we just add a 3rd child in. That seems to be correct. No, actually, no, this is 7 in that case. Yeah, they had the correct spacing that way. And we want this to be 7 rows, maybe? Okay, there we go. I think that fixed the issue I was running into. Maybe. There we go. So we're just going to pretend that this is exactly what we want. Move this back to 7. There we go. That looks better. I think I just accidentally put this to 8, and that was my problem. So now we have the 2 done. Now I want to work on the corner sections next. So let me comment these in. So we're going to have a corner number, and then we have a top, and we have a bottom. So dot corner number. This is obviously going to be position absolute, which means we want to change our card to be position relative. And then we want dot corner number top. This one's going to have a top of 0 and a left of 0. For now, we're going to obviously space it out a little bit. Honestly, let's just do it right now. 0.25 EM. That's probably about what the spacing will need to be. There we go. And then I think I can change the display here to flex direction to column. And we're just going to justify the content in the center. And then I believe, let me think here. We're going to want to have an after element, probably. Dot corner number after. We want the content to be a URL, which is the same URL as hearts. So we're just going to copy that. And that's only if we have a heart. So data suit equals heart. There we go. Puts the heart below it. Looks like we have way too much spacing going on. Let me see. I think it's just my font. Bring this over. Corner number. Yeah, the 2 is just really tall, and the heart is really skinny. So I think we want our heart. We can give this just a specific size. We can say like width is 0.5 EM. Let's see what that looks like. 0.75 EM. I think that might be a little big. If we kind of compare it over here. Yeah, it's pretty small. So we'll say 0.5 EM, and we're going to align items flex start. No, let's do justify content flex start. That didn't make a difference. Center that. I think if we change this to vertical align, at top. Does that fix it? No. Maybe we need to change the display here to flex and the align items to flex start. That didn't quite work as expected. Let's see what happened to my after element. It is there. I don't know why the display flex gets rid of my image. Really weird. What if we just say aspect ratio 1 to 1 again? Does that help with the height problem? No, we still have that really tall height. Oh, is it a line height issue? Line height 1. No. Oh, maybe we need to change the display to block. Didn't seem to make an issue either. Let's do line height 0. There we go. That's what my issue was. So I'm gonna refresh this. We'll get rid of this display flex stuff. Line height 0. And we'll say display block just in case. And this is going to go in all of the corner number afters. What this is doing is it's kind of like fixing the issue with this is thinking it's like an inline element and it's thinking that it has like a line height because it's got content and content is considered like text. So this is just saying, imagine we have no text at all and then give me a display block. Okay, I don't even know if we need display block, but we'll keep it on there just in case. Okay, also all the corner numbers should have these display properties on it. There we go. So now if we change the bottom one, we should just change top to bottom, left to right. And then the big thing is we need to just flip it. So we can say transform, rotate 180 degrees. There we go. And that looks the same as the two over there. Yeah, it does. It looks like a color of our number should also correspond with hearts versus not hearts. So I'm going to do this data suit thing for my card itself. So I'm going to come up here. We have our card. So card, color red. And there we go. Perfect. That changed the colors. I believe that's how cards look. Spade, club, black. Now we can get rid of these. Okay, there we go. We have the full styling done for the two. Actually, I need to flip my heart on the bottom. Yeah, I need to flip all the hearts on the bottom. So interesting. So this would just be transform, rotate 180 degrees. There we go. Okay, that fixes it. So now even if the entire card is rotated 180 degrees, it should still look exactly the same. And it does when I save. And if I remove this, they both have the exact same styling. So that means no matter what orientation our card is, it looks the same, which is how real cards work. So all of, well, let's come in here. We might as well get the rest of our suits hooked up. So we have diamond, spade, and club. There we go. So now if we change this to like the two of clubs, that works. Spade works. Diamond works. And back to heart also works. Great. And if we change the value, obviously nothing is going to work because we only have twos styled for now. So I think this is actually probably a decently good time to move on to trying to implement a lot of this with JavaScript, because what I can do is I can say that I want to create a card with the suit of heart and the value of 2, and it should be able to populate the pips on the inside and this corner number information for me, so I don't actually have to do all of that on my own. So there's a few ways that we can implement this. I could do it one way where I just like imagine this code doesn't exist and all my HTML is this, and then the JavaScript is going to populate based on the values, the actual pips and corner numbers and stuff for me. Or what I could do is I could just, in the JavaScript, have a method that's like create number or create card, and I'd pass it a suit and a value. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it this way, where I'm just going to, in my HTML, have like a card with a suit and a value, and it's going to populate all the information inside of it for me. I think that'll work pretty well. So let's create some JavaScript. And this is mostly just to help me to make an entire deck of cards without having to hard code and copy and paste, 52 different cards, because you don't want to sit here and watch that. Nobody does. So let's say we're going to get all of our cards. Query selector all dot card cards dot whoops cards. Oh, I called it card. There you go. Cards dot for each card. Actually, we can just say like add card details or card elements. Sure. Function add card elements takes in a card just like that. And then we can say card dot, actually we need to create the pips. So let's say const value equals card dot data set dot value. And then we can get this suit as well. Actually, we don't even need this suit, I don't think. But we'll just get it just in case we eventually need it. And then if the value is a number, so we could say const value as number equals parse int of our value. If value as number is not a number. So if we just come in here and say if that is not a number, then what we can do is we can just render out that many pips. What we'll do is I'll do this in the opposite though. I'll put it in the else. So if it is not a number, then we know it's something like an ace or a king or a queen or a jack, so we need to handle that situation. Otherwise, if it is not a number, or I'm sorry, if it is a number, then what we can do is we can just do a for loop and add a pip for each one. So we could say for let I equal 0, I is less than value as number, and I plus plus. What I can do is I can say card dot append, and we just need to create a new pip. So const pip equals document dot create element, and we'll just do a div. We could say pip dot classlist dot add pip. I think that's the only class we have on there, so we can add our pips. So this right here is going to add all of our pips for us. So immediately, if I add this script tag here, we should hopefully see, whoops, script.js, defer that. If we comment out our pips, okay, it's still working. It's still rendering out our pips. Now, the one problem is it's rendering out our corner numbers first. So let's just comment those out. There we go. That's working. So now all I need to do is do the corner number section next. So I'm just going to get rid of those. Into my script I go. And we need to make sure these come afterwards, that we render out these corner numbers. So I can say const corner equals document dot create element, which is a div, corner dot inner text, I will just say text content equals value. And then we can say corner dot class list dot append. I want to append the corner number class. There we go. Okay. And then card.append corner. And we can do the other corner is just corner.copy content. I thought there was, oh, clone. There we go, clone node. I think we have to pass true into this if we want it to be like a deep clone. And we can say other corner dot class list dot append bottom. And then our first corner dot class list dot append the top. Okay, I think technically this works, but we're gonna clean it up in a little bit here. So actually it looks like it doesn't work. It's not appending them. Let me just inspect our page, see what we got on corner.classlist.append is not a function. This should be add. Still doesn't fix it. Let's see. Console. Cannot read properties of undefined reading add. Class list.add. Oh, class list. There we go. Okay, it's technically working. I'm going to create a function called create corner number, and it's just going to be passed in is top. So this is going to do essentially all of this. If is top, actually, I don't even need to do that. I could just say position and then corner dot, whoops, corner dot class list dot add position and return corner. So now I can just change this, all of this code to just say create corner number top, and same thing down here, bottom. That just makes the code a lot cleaner. Didn't quite work, but I just probably forgot to copy something over. Let me see here. Value is not defined. Okay, yeah, pass in the value. And there we go, working. Okay. So there's our JavaScript. We still haven't needed to use this suit yet. We'll just keep that commented out for now. We, like I said, may need it, may not. So now what we should be able to do is I should just be able to copy this down, change this to a 3, for example, and now we can style our 3. So I'm going to go to my style sheet. Let's close a lot of these files we don't need. There we go. And the first thing I want to do is I want to change our body to be a display of grid, and the grid template columns is repeat auto fill. Min max, what is our minimum size? 5 EM and 1. Actually, no, we just want it to be repeat auto. How do we want this to repeat? I guess we could just do a display of flex. It's probably easier. And we could just say flex wrap. There we go. And if we just give it a gap of like 1 EM or something, or like 0.5 EM, that should hopefully give us some spacing. Okay. So let's style out 3. I'm just going to copy what we have for 2. I'm going to actually move this down to the very bottom. So we have 2. Now we're going to do 3. 3, should say 2. This should say 4, I believe is where we want to start the middle 3. And then 7. And this should be for child 3. And this middle one should not be rotated. Okay, not quite what we were going for. Grid row start 7. Oh, this should say 3. This should say 2. And this should say 2. This should say 4. There we go. Okay, perfect. And only the bottom one is rotated upside down, which is great because that's how a normal 3 is. 1 is going to be, the other way around. Okay, let's do 4 next. So this will say, oops, 4, 4, 4, and 4. And 4 is a little bit different because now we're in the corners. So our grid columns are 1, and 1, and 3, and 3. And our rows are 7, 7, 1, 1. If I change this to say 4, come over here with a 4, that should hopefully work. Mostly worked. Our column should be 3 here and 1 here. There we go. Now we have our 4s working. I'm wondering if our hearts are a little bit pressed up against the numbers over here. Like we need a little bit more padding is kind of what it looks like. What about 0.85 or like 1? Yeah, maybe we want 1 for our padding. That should work. Okay. Moving onwards, let's do 5 next. So this little section is going to be a little bit of, repetitive work because obviously we have to just hard code where each of these values go. There's no like pattern that it follows, unfortunately, so we can't just do it, based on some kind of fancy pattern. So the way 5 is let me see, it's exactly the same as 4, but the 5th one is now just going to be in the dead center. So all those ones are going to be exactly the same. This dead center one is going to have a row start of 4 and a column start of 2, I believe. And if we just paste down to get 5, not quite what I was looking for. It's mostly there. It is mostly there. Oh, let me see. We have 5 at 1, 1, 1, 3, 7, 1, 7, 3. And then this one, the row seems fine. The column seems fine. Interesting. Oh, this should be the 5th child. That's why. There we go. That worked. Now we can move on to 6. So I'm just going to copy all the 5s, come down here, change the 5s to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Copy down one last one. So that says 6. Okay. And this is going to be similar to 4 and 3 combined together because we just want them to be on the outside, top to bottom. So the first 4 are all going to be exactly the same. This 5th one is going to be in 1, 4, and this one would be in 7, 4. No, sorry. The row is going to be 1. The column is going to be 2. No, there's nothing in column 2. Column will be 1 as well, and the row would be 7. And here we have 7 and 3. I think that's what we wanted. I'm sorry, this should be 4 and 4 because we want this to be the middle. And now if we just do 6, there we go, that's working. And I'm just going to copy down the rest, 7, 8, 9. There we go. Obviously they don't work. I mean, it doesn't actually look too bad, to be honest, with just the default grid styling, but we want it to be cool and fancy, so that's why we're doing all the extra work. And it's not that much extra work, to be honest. So we're going to copy all the 6s. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make that a 7. Copy down one more of these. Make this a 7. And if you know a better way to do this, let me know in the comments below. It's just I don't see any pattern when I look at this, you know? So this is exactly the same as 6. We just add in an extra pip in the center at position 2. So this is the first one we're going to have an offset. You can see that this one right here is offset, even though the offset doesn't quite look great. I wonder why that is. Let me just inspect this real quick. So let's look at our grid. So we have our grid. Oh, there's like a, oh, interesting. So by default, our grid has like a certain size that it's attributing. I think it's because of the gap. Do we have a gap on our grid? No, we don't have a gap. You'll notice if I just like click on here, you can see this section right here has like a default size to it. Same with these two sections. There's like a default size to them. Interesting. Oh, no, that's because that's just the normal size of our row. Okay. So maybe we do need an 8 tall grid, actually. Because this one right here needs to fill these two spaces. We need a space above it and a space below it. And same here, we need a space above and below. Oh, I'm trying to think. Or we don't need any space above and below. So maybe our grid only needs to be 6 tall? Doesn't seem right, though. We have 1, 2. Let me go back to the cards here. So we have these 4 rows right here, and then we possibly have one here, and one here. That's a total of 7 different rows. How does this work? Because this is right here, 5 rows. So 2 of the rows are not being used, which is this row. No, that row is being used. It's this row right here and that row right there. Because yeah, let me just refresh this real quick. This is not looking right. Let me get the rest of them styled and then we'll take a look to see what the problem is. Come down here and we'll just do 8. This should say 7 here. 7, 7. All right. So 8 should look essentially the same exact as 7, but this bottom one should be flipped. We just need to move it down essentially to a position of like 6. And we want to flip it. There we go. I mean, the 8s look really good. I wonder why the 8s look so good and the 7 looks so bad. Let me inspect the grid on the 8 and see. Click on our grid here. Yeah, it's because those gaps became essentially non-existent. They have no space to them. So if a row is not being used, we want to get rid of it. I think that's kind of our problem, is our rows have like a default size that's being applied. So let's just say here, grid Auto, no, not auto rows. Oh, it's because they all have 1 FR of height. So even if there's nothing in it, it still has some height to it. And these pips should be spanning 2 rows. Are they? They're not spanning 2 rows though, are they? That's my problem. If I look here, they're only spanning 1 row. I think that span part is being overridden. If we look at one of our pips, oh no, yeah, the span is being overridden by the start position. Okay. Okay, interesting. I wonder what the best way to get around that problem is. Can I like also say span 2 in here? Let's see. I'm just going to do a quick Google for this. Grid row span 2 with start. /span2. Is that what I need to do? Let's see. Span 3, span 5, span 3, 6. Where is my span information? Okay, so I think that's my problem. So I need all of these to end in span 2. So I have a way to fix this without making all of our code too ugly. What I'm going to do, way up here, I'm going to use CSS variables for this. So where is our pip? Here it is. So this is grid row. Actually, we could just change this to grid row end, and that might work. So it definitely moved some things around. If I look at this, let me see. It looks like it should be spanning 2 of our grids. It is spanning 2 of the grids. Now all I need to do is center it. So on our grid, we could say align items center. Not quite what I was looking for. I thought that would align it in the center of the grid. Okay, it does. Oh, but they all span 2. Interesting. Let me just turn the grid on again. Yeah, it's like we almost have our grid being too big. So we have 1, 2. Is there a possibility for a third one to be here? That would be like the middle section, right? No, this is like the dead middle. If I look at these cards, yeah, this is the dead center, and then that's the row directly above it. So it shouldn't be offset like this. Well, let's just keep finishing this out. Oh, that looks really bad down here. Let me inspect this one real quick. It's got messy quick. I'm using it's spanning in the wrong direction on this one. It should be starting in a different location. So our 8, scroll all the way to the bottom here. This start position should be 5 because it should span 5 to 6. There we go. That looks correct. Okay. And let's do 9 next. I guess we got 10 as well to do. So, whoa, selected way too many of those. My bad. Okay, way too many. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. No, this is the 9th one. Okay. 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, and 9, and then copy down 9. Now 9 is completely different than the rest because now we have 4 items on the right, 4 items on the left, and then 1 in the very center. So we kind of have to start all the way from the very top. This is 1, 1, that's correct. This is going to be 3, 1, 5, 1, 7, 1, and then we want to have 1, 3, 3, 3, 5, 3. This 5, 3 is going to be rotated upside down. 7, 3 rotated upside down. This one's going to be right side up, and it's going to be dead center, so 4, 2. Mostly. Oh, this should say 9. There we go. That is correct. Ah, we just have this issue with our grid just being the wrong spacing. I wonder if I actually do need to have 8 columns. Okay, adding in the 8th column. It definitely scrunches these together, correct. This one's definitely right. This 7 is still a little bit off looking, which is probably fine. I mean, it's not actually wrong. It's technically in the exact right position. It just looks a little bit off from what you're used to with a deck of cards. But I think that's fine. Because there are decks of cards that look like this, where the heart is a little bit higher up. And I think if our hearts were taller, like they took the full height, it would maybe look a little bit more natural. But I think that's fine. This is fine. Let's do 10 next. And then we can get on to the kind of cooler suits, or the cooler values. So 10, scroll all the way down. So even with the JavaScript, you can see how there's quite a bit of tedium to doing this, but it's still a really fun project, I think. Oops. So all these 9s, we should replace with 10s and get another row down here. And 10 and 9 are almost the same. It's just we have essentially 2 different dots. So this one is going to be at position 2, and this one's at 6. And the 6th position is flipped. There we go. Those are in the right location. Okay, so our text is obviously not quite as good looking when we have a 10 there as it is when we have a 2. So let's change that. So in our corner numbers, we want to change, we want this to be, we want it to be in the center. Justify content, align items, center. Okay, that's good. Now our heart is lined up in the middle of our 10. We want our letter spacing to be small. So let's do like negative 0.1 EM. Can you do that with EMs? Yeah, you can. 0.15. So it kind of like scrunches our 10 together, which is good. Our heart little section is still not quite in the right position. Also, we can move this now a little bit closer to the side. So let's see what happens if we do 0, 0. Not quite. 0.1, 0.1. Looks pretty good. We'll do 0.1. 0.1. There we go. And for some reason, we still don't have our centering down with our 10. So let me look at this real quick. We'll look at the top one. So our 10, the heart. Oh, it's because our 10 is like overflowing the container size. That's kind of weird. Probably because of this letter spacing. Yeah, it's definitely because of the letter spacing. That's super weird that the 0 is like beyond its size. Because I want it to be kind of crunched together like that. Wonder if there's a better way to do this. So we have our letter spacing. We could just change our font size to be like 0.8 EM. Make it a little bit smaller. And we can change the letter spacing to be like -5 or -0.1 EM. And it's still overlapping though the container. Because if we look at the container, you can see the 10 is slightly outside of it, which is making this heart not quite centered. I think it looks mostly fine though. And we're gonna do that. So I have my letter spacing 0.1 and I had font size 0.9 EM, I believe. It must have been 0.8. And then we can change this back to 2.5. Okay, that looks good enough. If we get rid of that letter spacing, I just hate how, close or far apart the 10 and the 0 are. I think this is fine. So now we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they look really good. I am quite happy with how these look. And if we change it to, for example, diamond. Let's just make sure that works. There we go. Now we have all our diamonds. And as you can see, they look a little bit better. You know, the diamonds are kind of small, but that's fine. Spade, those look good. Club, also good. So let's just keep it at club. That's fine. Okay. Now we're gonna want to add in an ace. We're gonna want to add in the jack, queen, king. There we go. So now if we go to styles, why do we not have our club symbols showing up anymore? Oh, duh. It's because I only ever did my suit for one of these. So first of all, this width should be up here. And now if I just copy this, spade, club, and what is this one? Should be diamond. There we go. Now our clubs are showing up. Okay, that's what we want. Yep. So let's do the ace next, because the ace is going to be really easy. We have one pip, and it's going to be in the dead center. So it's 4, 2. And we need our JavaScript now to add that pip in. So if it's not a number, then we need to do, we'll do a switch statement on it. Our value, case of an ace, we're just going to add one pip. We're just going to create a function, create pip. There we go. And break. So if we have just an ace, it's going to add one pip right in the dead center. It looks great. Next, we can do the case where we have a jack. So it's kind of going to be really similar because we're going to be adding the like jack symbol or the king symbol or the queen symbol. I ended up just using pieces from chess because there's a king and a queen already, so I just made the jack a different piece from chess. Trying to think. And we want it to probably be large. So I'm going to do like create pip. Yeah, it could be a pip and we can just make it big, I think. Actually, we don't even need to do a pip. We could probably do something other than a pip. Actually, no, we could just do large. So I'll just say large. So we'll just say true to make it large. Is large. Okay. Pip.classlist.add large. We're only going to do this if is large. There we go. And then we can just come into our styles and we could say .pip.large. And we can say grid row end span 4 grid column end span 2. So it's just going to make it bigger. You maybe even make it bigger than that. We could do like 3 and 6. And we can make the column start on this one be 1. And the column start, or the row start on this one to be 2. Yeah, that'll center it. Okay. That looks pretty good. Yeah, and we'll make the jack, king, and queen also equally as big. So what I can do, we don't even need first child on the ace. What I can do is I can just copy this part of the selector, I believe, because our jack, queen, and king are going to be exactly the same. So jack, queen, king. There we go. We don't even need that large class. I could just do this. Oh, we can even combine. Yeah, okay. So then we can get rid of that large because it's no longer needed. And for jack, queen, and king, all I want to do is just add in the correct symbol. So I want to create a pip, but I want to give it a URL essentially. So let's just come in here, append, create a pip, and I'm going to give it the URL for images/jack.svg. There we go. We could just say here, URL, pip, pip dot, what do we want to do? Style dot back. Actually, no, we don't even, we could just add a class to it. Yeah, okay. So we could just say const pip equals create pip. I could just add the class Jack to it, I think. Actually, I don't even need to add the class, do I? Because I could just do that in the JavaScript or in the CSS. Yeah. So if the data value is Jack, then I already know what the URL or the image should be. Yeah, so we just need to add a pip. So we don't even need to do this switch statement. All we're doing is just adding a single pip. Yeah. Okay. That should work. And if we scroll down to these ones, they just have a giant club, but we're just going to change what the pip looks like in those scenarios. So normally, you know, we have, where do we have the pip being defined? Up here. Normally it's going to be one of these. But if the data value is, for example, Jack, Queen, or King, then we're going to show the Jack, Queen, or King symbol. So just like this, pip. And we'll just copy the background image section. Jack. There we go. That's what the Jack piece looks like, at least the one I just chose. Queen. Queen. And our King. King. Perfect. Now the only thing that I believe is not going to work is the coloring. So if we change these clubs to be a diamond, you can see that we still have black symbols. Now, the easiest way to fix this is just to have two Jack SVGs, one that's red, one that's green, and that would solve the issue. The other way would be to move this SVG into our JavaScript, and when we create our pip, we just like kind of put that SVG in, and then since the SVG is inside of our HTML, it'll actually take the current color and we won't need to hard code a color for it. That would be a little bit more work, obviously. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have like a Jack that is going to be red, red, black, black. And now what I can do inside of our styles is if our suit is diamond, or if our suit is heart. Then we're going to have a Jack red. There we go. Otherwise, in the case of a spade or a club, we're going to do the black Jack like this. And if I change our stuff here to be club, there we go. You can see it changed to black. Now, this is not ideal if you're going to have tons of different color combinations, but we have literally two possible colors. So I think it's perfectly fine if we just have two different SVGs, queen red, queen black. And the nice part about doing this is that we don't have to render out an individual SVG for each one of these symbols. We're just rendering out one image, and that image can be cached, which is really good. So black, red, king, red, red, and king black is black. Now let's copy down that CSS for all of these. So paste that down, paste it down. I kind of group these together. So we have these ones, which are queen, and king. So black ones showing up, perfect. Change it to heart. Now they're red, diamond, red, spade, black. That's perfect. And the thing that's super nice is if somewhere along the lines we change our font size. So I come all the way up to our body and I say font size 0.5 rem, have my font size. You can see all of the cards magically scale down to the perfect font size. They don't have to worry about changing anything. And all of that is because I have these CSS variables here that manage our aspect ratio, and everything is done in EMs. And EMs scale off font size. So as we change our font size, for example, we double it, now our cards are twice as big, it's just going to scale exactly like we want, which is really, really cool. Actually, one thing I just noticed right before I was going to finish this is that this spade right here in our 8 is kind of in the wrong position. So if we find the element in the middle here, so it's got a column of 2, this one should be 6, I believe, to push it down a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Now it looks much better. It looks in the right position. So I believe that was the only mistake that I had made. Hopefully you'll let me know if I didn't or if I made other mistakes, but there we go. That should hopefully be everything that we need for this. This project used a ton of complex CSS grid, and if you were confused by any of it, you're going to want to check out my full CSS grid tutorial linked over here. Also, if you want to see me try to solve a really cool CSS vertical timeline completely from scratch, just like this video, it's going to be linked right over here. With that said, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.